One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Scott, your track through college athletics came primarily in the compliance realm before you became the AD at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And I'm curious to start, what work in that division of college athletics helped you understand maybe part of the important role of being an AD? And that's a different construct than some people come into the AD chair, where it's more externally or fundraising related, or even from an outside business entity. But what advantages basically did you have in having such a strong compliance background when you became AD?
I think the main thing that helped me was knowing how the Division I governance structure works, and how rules are come up with, and what rules are out there, and how things work up at that level in Indianapolis. What helps me today, if I'm in discussions with coaches and some other staff members about looking at possibly doing certain things, having that compliance background, there's been quite a few times I've been able to say, well, hang on, we can't go that route because we've got an NCAA legislation there that prevents us from doing so. That's helped quite a bit in knowing how that structure works, and the day in and day out of getting legislation passed, and the proposal process where if we're wanting to try to do something we can't, well, what can we do to try to get that rule changed? Well, with my background, I've been able to say, well, hey, this is how we start with this. We go through our conference office and work this route. It's also helped with waiver processes, be it progress towards degree waivers, what used to be called ARS waivers. That's been a tremendous help too when I've been working with a coach on a certain situation, of knowing that, well, we can go file a certain type of waiver, and this is how it would work. This is who it goes through. This is the committee process. This is the process in case the NCAA denies it, how it goes out to a committee that's structured or made up of individuals like ourselves around the country and other athletic departments. So that's been a tremendous help for me on that side of things.
So equally, how did you constructively, or how do you continue to constructively work at becoming more adept on the external side of the job, whether it be rights fees, sponsorships, fundraising, which are certainly critical to the lifeblood of your department as a whole as well?
Well, I tell you what helped me before I was named the interim athletic director, back in 2011, was the 2.5 years prior. I was basically the number 2 person in the department. And the athletic director at that time was Tim Fitzpatrick, who's now at the United States Coast Guard. He was a tremendous help. I learned so much from him outside of the compliance realm in terms of, with the development in how you work with donors, the cultivation, the solicitation, the stewardshipness afterwards. That I learned so much from him on how to do that, but also learned quite a bit from him on the corporate sponsorship side and the marketing side. Even though I was over compliance, being in a small athletic department to me has a tremendous advantage over a large athletic department, because being in a small one, I'm in the middle of the marketing aspect and the corporate sponsorship aspect and the development. And I'm talking back before I was athletic director. We're all housed right here together within a few feet. So you hear all these things. You're involved in all the meetings. So it helps you out to where once you become that athletic director, for the most part, you know how all that works. At the same time, during those 2 years before I became the athletic director, I was involved in a lot of banquets and lunches, and at our games, we've got a real core set of donors that I got to know really well before I became the athletic director. So when I became the athletic director, I knew all of them. I knew how to work with them and where to go and what the people not to go to, in a sense. And I think what helped me too was I was here at Corpus. Had I left here as the number 2 to go be an AD somewhere else, I don't know if I'd be as successful at that time, because moving into this position here, I knew how everything worked here. I knew the entire community. I knew all of our donors. So that made the tremendous impact and helped me out quite a bit.
What suggestions would you have for senior compliance leaders around the nation who have an interest in becoming an AD, but maybe aren't given the opportunities you were under Tim? How can they start to learn more about the external side of the business? That's probably the wrong way to put it. Probably the more appropriate way to put it is how can they get themselves more involved, whether they're at a Power Five or, as you mentioned, one AAA where everybody has some type of hand in virtually everything.
I don't think it matters on what level you're at in doing this, but probably the number one thing is if you've got an athletic director who's willing to help you gain that experience, that's where you've got to start. The athletic director or maybe the deputy AD, and talk with them about, listen, I want to be in your chair one day, be either here at another institution, but I need to be involved and get some experience. And hopefully they'll let them do it. Now, obviously, as long as it doesn't take away from their compliance duties, that's really the best way you can do it. One of the things I think that helps me and people in smaller institutions, when you're in smaller athletic departments, you're automatically exposed to everything else in the department instead of just compliance. That is a tremendous help because you learn all those different things. But if you're in a larger one, a Power Five, you've got to really reach out to those upper level staff members, the deputy ADs, the athletic directors, and try to convince them to let you get that access and experience. And hopefully they will. I've made it a point here is to try to get everyone in here experience and exposure to all the different areas. And it's not too difficult for us because everyone has to help out each other constantly, be it during games, during events. We've got compliance staff that sometimes help out with our event staff and vice versa, just because we're not heavily staffed. So I think that's a big thing. You've got to get in there and talk to those deputy ADs and ADs for that. That's also a great way to establish a mentorship. Choose the correct type of AD or deputy AD or associate AD or whatever, and try to get them to help mentor you in not only those other areas, but really just how to become a better staff member.
You mentioned your all's positioning within Division I college athletics as a 1 AAA and how many staff members have to do different things to support their peers and colleagues. And we read and hear plenty about college athletics in the overall state of Texas. Obviously, many institutions in the state are very well covered from a news standpoint. But how do you see the Texas A&M Corpus Christi brand within the state, as well as the overall landscape? And this is a multi-part question, as I'm so apt to do. What's the ceiling competitively and for the student-athlete experience at your place?
I don't think we have a ceiling at all. One thing that we have to compete with here in the state of Texas is football is king here. And, we don't have football. So the only way that people are going to really hear about us athletically is really if our men's basketball program. Back in 2007, our men's basketball team went undefeated through the conference and won conference and went to the tournament. And I hear people here in Corpus Christi talking to me about that. Fans that I've never even met before come up and say, hey, I remember in 2007, going to the NCAA tournament. That's how people end up remembering you and knowing you in this state. If you don't have football, is you've got to get your basketball team to that NCAA tournament. Prime example, SFA is in our conference. Up until, 3 years ago, a lot of people around the country and in the state, they knew SFA, who they were, but until they went into the tournament and won a game, a lot of people didn't know who they were. So that's our biggest key to get our branding out there more is we've got to get better in basketball and win our conference to get to the NCAA tournament for a branding standpoint. Student athlete experience, we don't feel there's a ceiling. You're allowed to do cost of attendance, and we're able to do a little bit of that with our basketball programs. But there's so much more we have to offer here for the student athlete experience. And a lot of that has to do is we don't have football. So we're able to put more money into our student athletes than maybe what some other schools at our level that have football can do. Being on the beach and on our own island, that right there is a great student athlete experience in itself without us spending any money. They're coming to school on a vacation destination, so that helps us.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.